Hey, what's up guys? My name's Curtis. It's getting close to a year since I posted my first ever YouTube video, the floating bed frame with LED lights. Since it got such a super great response and a couple of requests, today I'm going to modify it by adding a headboard with some storage and some super cool lamps. Come on, let's take a look. The first thing I want to do is spend about 45 seconds answering the two most commonly asked questions from the first video. The first one has to do with how stable and sturdy the bed frame is. Now, I've learned quite a whole lot of video editing techniques in the year that I've been posting to YouTube, so hopefully I can show you without question that this bed frame is 100% rock solid, even after I installed the headboard. Next, there was some confusion over the measurements. If you've built this already, or if you want to build it without the headboard, this is where you should be at. You can see the 77-inch sideboard fits inside of the 60-inch frame headboard. From here, you will either need to use your board stretcher or acquire two new 2x6/8 to make the length of your sideboards 84 inches instead of 77. Also, you will need to trim your frame headboard down to 57 inches, which is the same length as the joists. You can see I'm taking the time to measure and make sure to keep my frame square. I didn't want the fleece on my frame headboard, so I replaced it as well. Here I'll show you a couple different angles of what the modified bed frame should look like. Next is making and installing the upright braces for the actual headboard. These are 2x6s that are 22.5 inches long with 5.5-inch square blocks secured to them for extra support. This will make it easy to adjust the overall height of the headboard if it doesn't sit where I want it to when I get it set up. I'm going to pause here for just a moment and let you know if you want to build something that is mega easy. You can simply cut your 2x6 upright supports to about 45 or 46 inches instead of 22.5 and put 1x6 boards across the front like I illustrated here in green. Personally, I wanted something like this though, but I have no idea what I'm doing, so I'm just going to start making a whole bunch of cuts and see where I end up. It's going to end up being a total of 20 pieces and may seem kind of intimidating on the surface to people new to the craft, but this is a pretty simple build and I'll walk you right through it, starting with the list of your cuts right here. Since I've already built this to make sure I can get it about where I want it, I need to take it apart and sand it down to 80 grit first. This headboard was built with common whitewood untreated boards that I purchased at my local home improvement store. I picked out the hinges and fasteners at the same time. I'll take time to wipe down all my boards with a pretty wet cloth to remove the excess sawdust and make the fibers on the wood stand up, so when I sand it down to 220, the boards come out unbelievably smooth and ready to finish. This is the first time I've tried wiping my boards down, and I was actually shocked at the difference it makes. You definitely need to do this. This is the backboard assembly and is similar to what I was showing earlier. I'm going to secure this onto the back of the rest of the headboard. This is going to capture light from the base and help me hide all the wires. Next is the storage inside uprights. I'll take a moment and pause it here so you can see which board is which while referring back to the list of cuts needed for this project. I don't need to put a million screws in here to keep this thing together, but I do want it to be very secure. Make sure and take the time to pre-drill all of your holes so that you don't run into a problem with your wood splitting later. Unfortunately, some of the boards I purchased were less than ideal, so some encouragement with clamps was pretty necessary at several points in this project. I'm ripping and running and everything's going great, just as planned. I had made an adjustment earlier in the build on the back storage board and unknowingly put the screws back in the wrong holes while I was putting it back together here. I don't realize this yet, that time is coming soon, but I can still show you how I built it from start to finish to give you an idea. I'll take this opportunity to remind you to make sure and get lumber that is as straight as possible and to double check your measurements at pretty much every opportunity that you have. That should make assembly go a little bit more smoothly. I don't know, I'm lined up incorrectly yet, so I'm going to keep going thinking everything is fine. I'm going to set the drawers in place after I secure the hinges, and I'm getting pretty close to realizing there's a problem. Let me take several looks here, putting the eyeball double check to make sure that there is actually a problem. And yes, there is actually a problem. So I'm going to quickly make the necessary adjustments to get this baby lined up properly. Once I think I've fixed it, I'm going to finish putting it back together, and everything's going to be fine. But no, it's not, because something is still not cooperating with me. These boards are giving me a little bit of a hard time, but it's nothing I can't fix. After I install the back shelf uprights, I'll use a little bit of sandpaper encouragement on the edge of one of the doors to round it off and get it to open and close properly. I'm going to go ahead and set the magnets to hold the doors open next. I'll just put these in a spot that seems pretty good. Make sure and put glue in each one, and I do not recommend chiseling out the holes. If you don't glue the magnets, they will very likely fall out, just like they did to me. I used a little baby hammer to set them in all the way flush with the surface of the wood, and I really can't believe how strong these tiny little things are. I'll be using these on other projects and in my shop for sure. It's starting to come together, so I'll finish up by adding the shelves, the backboard assembly, and the top. I'm not ready to stain and finish this headboard yet because I'm probably working on another modification for the bed frame in which I make the base function as storage. This video will be posted before the end of the year 2020, and I'm going to try to work in some floating nightstands because of a request I received at the very last minute of video edit. This headboard can easily be built on the upright supports that I mounted earlier, but because of my situation, I chose to build it downstairs where I have easier access to my tools. Now, I've got to get it upstairs. I'll take you along for the ride while I negotiate this treacherous labyrinth of an obstacle course. I'll bang it into the wall a couple times because it is pretty large but not especially heavy, so it is still manageable. If you don't know by now, I pretty much love all things that light up. Let me carefully set the assembly on the mounts and clamp it down for extra security while I bolt it in with 4 screws on each side. I'll make sure that it is solid and not going to rock back and forth too much, as I was especially worried about this. You can tell I just love jumping around in my floating bed because it's so much fun. I can't have the headboard banging into the wall though. It does move a tiny little bit if you remember from the beginning of the video when I was jumping around showing the overall stability. This was at the 42-second mark and lasts for about 10 seconds. Once everything is put together, you will notice a gap at the bottom between the storage and the bottom of the backboard assembly. As I mentioned, this is to capture light coming off the base. That turned out pretty well, and here are some ideas for storage. I followed the extremely simple instructions to mount the lamps and was done before I knew it. I'll show you the light bulbs that I used in several positions of the lamps utilizing the really awesome swing arm function. I purchased the power strip specifically because of its dimensions and number of outlets and USB ports. I can have my items plugged in and the door closes like it should, no problem. Part of the storage obviously was to help me hide the wires. I installed a wireless charger for my phone on one of the shelves so the LED flash alert would help wake me up in the mornings. I had to modify the dividers and the inside of the doors to get the wires to sit so the doors would close all the way. I drilled a couple of holes to finish hiding the wires and will clean these up when I take it apart again to completely finish it. I think it turned out great and wouldn't mind answering any questions you may have. Several people reached out to me for help with this build after they saw the first video, especially people new to woodworking and carpentry. A couple were kind enough to share their end product with me, so here are a couple pictures that I received from complete strangers that have built this exact bed frame as you see it. I really appreciate the interaction and look forward to the comments section. I appreciate you taking the time to leave me your thoughts, questions, recommendations, and concerns. Come back and see me soon. I've got a new video on the way. Thanks for watching.